Okay. Can you all hear me? Okay. I feel like I can hear myself, so that's good. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to those in the room and to everyone who is watching either on those two cameras or that one via YouTube. It's lovely to be here. It's lovely that you're all here. It's lovely that we're having a poetry festival. This event is titled Speaking Up, Poetry and Activism. We actually sent out a pre-festival survey to see what kind of events people wanted to have at the festival, and an event about poetry and activism was #1 on that list. So we're giving you what you wanted, and I hope you like it. So can art change the way society behaves? What happens when we write through rage and speak out against injustice? This event brings together 3 poets who have all written in response to socio-political inequalities. Actually, the first of those readers, Stephen Lightbown, isn't able to make it today. So I'm going to read a little bio for Stephen, and then I'm going to read a few of his poems from this book, The Last Custodian, which imagines an apocalyptic world in which one of the very few people left alive is Luke. The book follows him on his journey as he travels by wheelchair around the devastated country, surviving and making mysterious connections. Stephen Lightbown is a Bristol-based poet, yoga teacher and surfer who has spoken at events from Shambhala to San Antonio and has published 2 poetry collections for adults, Only Air and The Last Custodian, with Burning Eye Books. In May, that's now, so it might have already happened. I just wrote that in brackets, that's not very useful. He will publish his first poetry book for children, which is called And I Climbed, and that's published by Troika Books. So I'm just going to read 2 or 3 poems from the start of The Last Custodian, which, as mentioned, there's a sort of unknown apocalyptic event, and all the poems are in the voice of Luke, who is the survivor. They're also they're all mapped around the country. They start in Bristol, and kind of there's even, which is very cool, there's even a little map at the front, which I'm struggling to find, of the sort of the apocalyptic journey that he goes on. Day 1, Bristol. I drink the juice from the tinned peaches, gulp down survivor syndrome, ignore the urge to add cream and ladyfingers. Thinking of dessert doesn't seem right when I can't smile at you across our table raised on 4 yoga blocks. A small ooze of sugar water escapes from the tin and settles in my beard. I leave it, fantasize about an exhausted bee replenishing itself on my chin. I wipe the sticky residue away with a grubby hand. I'm so bereft of contact that the thought of a bee coming for pleasure then leaving to return to the hive, revitalized, is simply too much. Day 2, Bristol. So this poem is addressed to someone, but the someone's name is blacked out, so I'm just going to do a little pause. Redacted, that's the word, isn't it? Dear, your breath used to hibernate in my ear, then crawl out of the woods to stretch. I've waited for it to break through the tree line. Dear, you used to sleep so beautifully, a 5-pointed star to curl around. Dear, from the window, it looks like the world has ended. I haven't seen anyone in weeks. Dear, you gave up work to bring me home, nurturing this vegetable patch in a bucket of sludge, chose to remain married. Why won't you tell me, should I stay here with you or should I leave? Dear, I have the attention span of your favourite mug. I'll leave it outside your door. There's no more medical supplies, the plants have died. I've started drinking shampoo. Somehow I need to survive. Dear, this is goodbye. Today I leave, I will not take your name out there with me. And I'm just going to do one more. Day 8, Bristol. Take only what you can carry and drag. Leave everything else. Egg cups, fridge magnets, the sofa cushion mould of your arse. Leave room for a hot water bottle, tin opener, 2 pairs of gloves, your inner lava. Leave time to look around. The smell of decay won't obediently heal when you close the door. Leave your fear of being alone. There will be plenty of new phobias to collect along the way. I've left the way, redacted, used to run her finger along my surgery scar. Take care. I'm all that remains, the claggy bottom of a peanut butter jar. Sorry, things are getting attached to other things. Right, I am back. I'm back as myself, and I am going to introduce our next reader, Fran Lock. So Fran Lock's blistering essay, memoir, poetry, polemic, white other. Can I wave it in the air? Because in my bag or something, I think. Looks like this. It's fantastic. It's published. Oh no, sorry. It's published by the 87 Press and received a Poetry Book Society recommendation. It's a book that doesn't hold back, engaging rant as art form in its examination of the white working class experience in neoliberal society. Fran did a workshop for us earlier in the festival on these themes, and that was brilliant, and I think it's given me a lot of things to think about ever since. So that's excellent. Fran is the author of numerous chapbooks and 10 poetry collections, the most recent being Forever Alive from Dare Gale Press and Hyena Jackal Dog, a poetry bus from Poetry Bus Press, as well as White Other, which I've mentioned. Fran is currently the Judith E. Wilson Fellow at Cambridge University and an associate editor at Culture Matters. So, welcome.
Generational poverty. Alternative faces, identical fates. 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 So, thanks for coming and thanks for having me. I'm going to read some things from here, and then I'm going to read some things that actually look and sound more like poems. You will be relieved, and then I will leave, and you'll be even more relieved. So I'm going to start with this poem, Pagado Jib, or Chib, or Dear George, after the Victorian novelist and ethnographer George Borrow and other self-proclaimed Romany Rye who set themselves up as experts and arbiters of Gypsy language and culture, coiners of the phrase Pagado Jib, which they translate as broken tongue to describe the degenerate speech of impure itinerants as opposed to that of the true or pure Romanys. Fuck those guys. And this starts with 3 wee quotes. These people, Abraham men or pikers, have frequently been confounded with the gypsies, but are in reality a distinct race. Though they resemble the latter in some points, they roam about like the gypsies, and like them have a kind of secret language. But the gypsies are a people of oriental origin, whilst the Abrahamites are the scurf of the English body corporate. The language of the gypsies is a real language, more like the Sanskrit than any other language in the world, whereas the speech of the Abrahamites is a horrid jargon, composed for the most part of Low English words used in an allegorical sense. George Borrow, Romano Lavo Lil, 1874. One can rarely be sure whether the word, gypsy, is being used in its proper sense to describe the obstinately surviving race of purebred Romanis, that is, purebred as one finds them in these times, who still uphold as best they can the nomadic traditions of their ancestors, or whether the true gypsies are being lumped together with other social groups like mumpers, squatters, and tramps. A. Fraser, The Gypsy Problem, from the Journal of the Gypsy Law Society, 3rd series, 1953. It's not Irish, it's not English, it's just, well, it's just pikey, from the film Snatch by Guy Ritchie, 2000. Dear George, just to say, I mistook my tongue for a locust dipped in honey, for the cloudy surmise of a mushroom sublimed in its spores, for the scurvy vagabondage of a London night, for the airless distillery slang of ghosts, or for Mihal's hand as it slicked from me, for the wasting regime of hospitals, for us raw-boned boys chewing the cud of conviction, those golden paddock chancers a chaser of dirt to go with the comment they swallowed. All of my life, I mistook myself for the wind in the weeds with a stupid look like a horse led lame to water. Dear George, just to say, I saw myself this morning as a line of ants, as a string of beads. My sickle stunts the cloudy part of pain the way the starlings break apart like leaves of tea. This way we once had language, the horses' backs like pale anvils, a coke can dipped in the holy well, and kestrels, those aerial sadists always. George, we are not animals and are animals and soar ourselves in the decorous twilight of beasts, the rans, the dogs, the foxes, the jinxes and the flukes. I travelled in torchlight the length of myself. I looked on us boys in gilded, gelded sullenness, how their lips cracked in want of a cross to kiss, loiterers in stale glory. Dear George, to be a reaper of repeat offences, to be spooky, trailing a vaudeville doom for kicks. I was the swan's mother. I was the tar baby's midwife, writhing on a bed of wanton lilies wrapped in plastic. Do you not know me? Having entered my tent, having asked me my name, having issued your rockering warrant. Am I not stained by your boot steps? Here, where you trampled your epitaph into my skin, scholar of our Pyrrhic kenning's motto scrawled on the blade of an axe, said me to debris, convened your committee of sour regrets in my empty mouth. Dear George, do you know me now? With your tongue dressed in all the finery of refusal and many more hereafter, the Arts Council funding a thoroughbred no and horse with warning. Miho passing pinkly through an ugly medical threshold, where temperament assessors say, speak not your lumpen fury, speak not your cock-robin hiccup of song traipsing through an aisling. You've hung a sign from our language that reads no Irish need apply, struck a match against exhaustion and burnt our papers by candlelight, same old. And the cherished repetition of a hand through flame, through a plate glass window, through a hole in our culture. How you sealed me tight against reply within the infamous skin of obituary, muttered my meltweight to fraud, made me a bantering shadow counterfeit, a bleak fate I cannot counter, to sow myself first in the deep pocket of my poacher's coat. I grow myself more blades than coins, more coins than fingers. Do you know my name? Broken between pannier paths and weirs, and axe the hot dread of halting. I mistook my name for a spasm of magpies, for Mihal's hair threshed by the weather, for pungent honey, for my mirage of fragile appetite. In a place of inhospitable reprieve abhors the lay-by where I gave my name and dressed myself in a saint-shed skin. Dear George, how it feels to be scurf, how language sweats out my infection, my effect, my affection, syllable by syllable. I mistook myself for a woman, and the molten frontier of his stare for love. We took the cobalt altar of the night for hours, how the hedge hung sweetly on our nakedness. I mistook the road for my own, The long day swollen with O's, the breath made feathery with effort. George, was this never ours? Barefoot in the wake house of the Gaelic language, we set ourselves to error again and again. Encore toward the dying fire, to be so repulsively dispossessed, like a naked snail, our songs have second-guessed the gutter. Dear George, you may keep your purity. This language made erratically with hammer blows. I met the morning in his mouth. These tongues were never broken, George. Our native grief, the cleave. We might read, we go. This is Meditations on the Life and Example of Saint Valerie. Call me a witch, I will show you a witch. I am half pharaoh and half corpse, that is, all woman. Through the drugged attrition of late adolescence, with a limp calm dressing for breakfast. At the funeral, offering our condolences in a psychopath test falsetto, we cannot wait to talk about ourselves. My father vivisected splendidly the weight of a white shadow. At school, I borrow the head of a horse. I want to be beautiful, anemic and gaudy. My most languid disguise is a cat with a pastel paw. In the dream, I am injured, anointed, wastrels wearing flower crowns strew my path with roses. The man moving over me in macabre eclipse, his lips dropping insolent valentines, assailant, assassin, all his footsteps are addressed to me. The mind and its buried devils, the girls and their scrupulous malice, populist and absolute. In the medieval poem, The Names of the Hare has 77 names. I have 77 names, and a burlesque of bad luck the same. My sonnet is a suitcase, inexpertly packed. Crinolines, oxbloods, superfluous tulips, an obeyed, the dirge, all admonitions, carnival. My poetry is like vodka, tastes only of itself. I was set adrift on a bamboo raft under a rose-pink sky. I put the conch shell to my lips and I bugled a reveille. At 7, intently beheaded, Val is her own stubborn double. A child counts roses on a swing seat. She remembers the gum in her hair. Let's not be those women, falling apart in fine Regency fragments. A white dress is pretending you're dead. A white dress thinks it's better than you. This is called fetish capital. Take to your bed, buying Starfucker sandals on sale. Cry for days, learn how to account for flowers, domestic gin, get real classical about it. Stand around in fountains, your mouth all smooth with rumour. Do la dolce vita, incur a saint's displeasure. In the future, there is tentacle sex, nectar from another daughter's tongue, the alienation of labour. If she loves you, she will love you forever and ache you to the light. More likely, she will not love you. A shut mouth leaking its blank unsaid. I couldn't wait to comb the church from my hair, blessing myself by black gloves and patent moons, by holy salt, girls all flesh and fleece. There were morgues, mirrors, intended smoke. A flame in the light bulb abodes of the skull is wagging, is waging a merciless halo. Later, you may find yourself bruised by the cyborg blade of her tongue. She delivers and resists all names. She cleans the names, the knives that cut the names from culture. Look out, it's feeding time at the zoo. Antagonist, fur collects on her tendons, fur collects in her cells. She is changing. Men are a fleshy back in bed. He has no edges, no accent. He is a sponge, a screen. If she can't use words, she will say it with squirming, or an I want loop, or a lobbed bottle of boiling piss. Better dically psychotic than a soother, a breeder, an ego booster. Because they tried to pay her in peaches, because they said they'd pretend at the protest, because they called her a saint, but they kept the receipts. Abused crackpot. her brain a round window, a perfect disposable O. She signed her name with a string of pearls, these robbery thoughts her own, vandal, a skin stitched into miracle, each womb a needless prison, each daughter receives a needless wound. We will never be as full as they are empty. Cities do their fibre optic amen underground, and worms are perverts and they get in everywhere, contaminants, inferiors. Better to be dead. We asked Valerie for guidance. Her head was a lantern in a lion's mouth, inspecting error. Regretting massively my wardrobe choices. It was very, very hot. People did warn me, but I'm no, I'm going to wear the jacket. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, God, nothing is worth this. I swear to Christ, I'm dying. This is a poem. It's called The Gospel of Work. And it also starts with a quote. Oh, I should also say this is forthcoming Repellents. This will be out, A Disgusting Lie, Further Adventures Through the Neoliberal Hellmouth. It will be out, that's genuinely what it's called. It will be, I don't know what it just is. It'll be out later this year. This is a poem called The Gospel of Work. And it starts with a quote from Herbert Spencer, 1851. Under the natural order of things, society is constantly excreting its unhealthy, imbecile, slow, vacillating, faithless members. How will you know me? By the warped lope of a mastiff dog, by the George Act with phossy rancour in the wolf suit of my infamous skin, by the maggoty banter of flies in fruit, through nights of remaindered malaise and all our lackey sacraments of hooch, gaffed moon, daft with shining, how? You'll number me among the mooching ghosts of minimum wage as hooky spectres wailing through the false haunts of bookies, bars as boggart faces straining through the cerements of debt. Know me as a stooge inside your sober hoaxes, by the fourth nail forged or stolen, fenced and pledged. Know me as a buccaneer of bootleg luck, oh, my lorries of larcenous load, my freight of pirate valentines. Fear me for the snared tempest snap, for my disconcerting saunter through your city ginnels gullies, through your corridors of power. I will cudgel my lungs on industrial air, all as breathy choristers of fever sing our skylit ribbons into tubicel and soar. Fear us, for we are your grim stenographers of want. This country bears the dead weight of our witnessing, retrace our galley schlep and daily stride in steps soiled with sick report. You are besieged, despoiled, your lily crypts defiled, currency to canker. How will you know me? By the shuddering palsies of enterprise, my carafe full of wasting wine. Kill me. Your cutthroat captions closed around my strut, the cauterized lacunae of an open mouth, an open wound, my mouth and yours, still angsting its glaciate policy, hands wrung to a rictus theme, to pity's panto make pretend, the fault in your face gives up, its liars drag in stunted pouts and puffs of scented gibberish. What is to be done? With a pinochle poor whose plebby knuckles scuffed the ground, with gorpers toads in mourning nailing our cretin's tome to the door of your church. Dank manifestos of absolute ingratitude, who droop to genuflection, rise to riot, remade as faction, sect and mob. You will salt our swagger so nothing grows again. The Stone Age we're bombed back to, the volatile life of the mind. Gadjo, big man, even the birds go begging here. And how will you know, teasing the hazardous griefs from our joined-up thinking, our banjally lingos and sing-along through settle and shift and the make-work of morning, up on earlies in a weak light, faces form around their oaths. Home is the steely dwelling place of cuss and curse, the worst and best of language, ferrous and bereft, you cannot know. From the genteel gridlock of good manners, you sense as devil, bleeping out the very agonies that you invent. No love can leak through the wet collodion membrane of status. No love can enter the rank crevice proper to wealth and survive. All your syrup folderols, the stinking plaints of privilege, are so much watered ale. We who will live in the slurred mistakings of vagrancy, alert and devoured as the new rows occupied with aphids, we will know. And finally singing, we will know ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's just, I feel quite blown away, but in a good way. Yeah, absolutely in a good way. So our next reader is Inua Ellams. Where have I put it? I will get better at this, the book thing. By tomorrow, I'll be really good. The Actual is a book of rage that calls out racism, toxic masculinity, and empire in poems titled things like Fuck Borders, Fuck History, and Fuck Love, to name but a few. At times it's questioning, at times it's confrontational, but it looks head-on at society and culture and their failings. Born in Nigeria, Inua Ellams is a poet, playwright and performer, graphic designer and founder of the Midnight Run, which sounds very cool, an arts-filled urban night walking experience. And the Rhythm and Poetry Party, which celebrates poetry and hip-hop. Identity, displacement and destiny are recurring themes in his work, where he tries to mix the old with the new, traditional African storytelling with contemporary poetics, for example. His books are published by Flipped Eye, Akashic, I might not have said that right, Nine Arches Press, Penned in the Margins, Oberon and Methuen. Please welcome Inua Ellams.
Hello. Hi. There, got it. Cool. Hello. Hello. Thank you. Thank you. I never really set out to be a political writer, but I think if you're male, if you're black, if you're an immigrant, if you're from a Muslim background, then it's difficult. Politics finds you, and that's what happened to me. And the actual. I think Donald Trump said something racist and misogynist and homophobic years and years ago. And I remember getting so angry. I thought, fuck Donald Trump. And then I wrote this rant. And I thought, the title is a little bit too close. So I changed it to Fuck 45 because it was the 45th president of America. And then my friend read the poem and liked it and challenged me to write 45 fuck poems. And I wrote 55 because I realized I was angry about many more things. And that's where the book came out, and the 55 fuck poems. But I haven't chosen which one to read. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you guys to shout out words, and I'll type it into the search function and read to you poems that contain your words, and we'll see how many poems we rattle through in the next 15 minutes. That's about great. So yeah, any word? Cauliflower. Wow. Okay. Oh no, definitely not. Wow. But let's look for cauliflower affiliated words. Vegetables. Let's see. Vegetables. Yes, I do have And this poem is called Fuck Carrots. Hope you look close to cauliflowers, but not quite. I wrote a play years ago called Barbershop Chronicles, and it's just about it's about the safe space barbershops are, specifically to men of African descent. The play is set in Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana, and England. And the play travels to all of those barbershops in all of those countries. So I spent 1 week in Uganda. In Kenya, researching. I traveled to all of those countries in order to write the play. And this is based on a conversation I had in Kenya, but I transposed it to my barbershop in South London. My barber retired over lockdown. He became a train driver, which I miss him. I miss him. Now and then, I don't know, he sends me Instagram messages, and I just think you should be cutting my hair. But yeah, this is said in my barbershop. It's called Fuck Carrots. Friday night, barbershop. It's starting again. Samuel, his hand poised over Ethan's head, is Basquiat before an uncrowned king. Is Henry Moore before a block of wood? Is Sigmund Freud before a mass of contradictions? Clippers, paintbrush, chisel, voice. The task is the same, to bring to light what lies within. The shop is stocked full of us, our skin, all the tints and tones of wood, our heads of wild foliage. Kwame just taxied from Saudi Arabia, slides off his cap and says his driver was a woman. How progressive London is compared to Saudi, which banned them from driving. Why, Ethan asks, wide-eyed beneath Samuel. Because, Kwame says, fear of infidelity. They even banned courgettes. Cucumbers are illegal. Emmanuel, who knows where this is going. He who owns the shop, who's heard all types of talk, sighs into his client's head. Why, Ethan asks. Because of self-pleasure. Winston cackles from the center of the shop. Because of vegetables, they will need a man. What about carrots, asks Uncle Sizwe. Too pointy, Kwame responds. But you can carve them, pipes Mohammed from the back. They can be huge. Yes, size matters. And the tide of conversation swells among the men. Some as if captains sway in their seats. Others stand up, out on a limb, begging for the sanity and sanctity of sex, covering their sons' ears, risible in the ridicule. A passerby peek him, I wonder what it is. If something's in the water, some loosening opiate, a dark tonic, black juice we have drunk. What magic is this welding of loose-necked Pinocchios? Gym freaks, thin-limbed emigrants, fantastic fools, fathers, sons, rulers, and the ruled, loud in our laughter, silent in our suffering. What is this binding? What is set free? All I know is Ethan's cut is clean. Samuel released what lay within, his mash trimmed, the wood gleams, and though he's one of us, now he's crowned king. So. Thank you. Cauliflower, close. Okay, another word. Lion. Okay, the animal. Lion. I have million. No, I don't quite have. Okay, let's look for another big cat. What else? Humanity. Huh? Humanity is not a big cat. I mean, why come to that? But what else? Tigers. Tiger, jaguar. Jaguar. Do I have a no? Puma. Do I have a? No, I must have mentioned a puma. No.
Should be a general animal?
Cheetah. No. Damn it. I could have sworn I love big cats. Leopard. Oh, damn it. I'm failing you guys. I'm so sorry. Wait, how did I not? Panther. No.
Well, if you haven't got Jaguar, how about BMW?
I see what you did there. Let me see. BMW. No, this is not working out. Fast. Let's just go with car. Yes. I have a car. Would you accept car? So we went from lion to car. This was a rant about Nelson Mandela, which I discovered in South Africa, in Johannesburg, when I was interviewing my taxi driver. And this is what he wrote, and was about Winnie Mandela. The poem is called Fuck Mandela. Found poem. So, Winnie Mandela should have led this country. It's because of her he was freed. She said, let's render South Africa ungovernable. Fuck it up. So whites have no choice but to back down. That's why they freed Mandela, and he let them off easy. Truth and Reconciliation Commission was a farce, a year of countless blacks coming forward saying, my father was murdered, brother tortured, son mutilated. All the perpetrators had to do was admit it or apologize, and most didn't even do that. They said they were in a war situation. They were taking orders. For us, it was genocide. Look at our society. The fact that we never got to deal with it manifests in violence. Men who rape children, beat women. If criminals hijack a car, they slit the driver's throat. We are still frustrated, generations emasculated, called boys for centuries, taking it out on each other because we never got to get mad and say we were fucked around for 350 years and no one was held accountable. I don't want sympathy. It's time for them to fucking pay. A recent survey showed 40% of white South Africans don't think apartheid was wrong. This is the world we live in. The balance of economic power is with them in our land. Mandela failed us. Am I wrong? Thank you. Okay, another word. Silence. Okay. S-I-L-E. Yes, I do have silence here, fortunately. In quite a few poems. Should I? Which one? There are 5 poems here. 3. Okay. This poem is called Fuck White Savior Complex. And it's about, one of those gap year, yeah, that's it. Her name is Jane or Amber. She will have the best intentions. She will have the petal of this reason for a tongue. She will have been 5. The glow of the National Geographic will have bathed her face golden. She will have paused on the dark child's swollen belly, thin limbs, ribs, the flies. She will have slipped off her big sister's Louboutins, skipped the playroom through her mother's walk-in wardrobe to the pool to ask if the child could attend supper. Her mother's life will shimmer her diamonds. She will explain, the world is the world. Some work hard like your father forging oil contracts. Some just don't. But we are still to help the poor in Africa. She will have wanted to ever since. Her utmost sincerity will cut you to silence. She will bloom anew. Thanks. Cool. Thank you. Okay, another word. Pardon? Traffic. Okay, T-R-A-F-F. Yeah. This is the first poem in the book, actually. I lived in London between 1996 and 1999. And in 1999, I moved to Dublin. And when I arrived in London, I hated hip-hop. Didn't understand why people would make really intricate music and some other dudes with anger issues would just be chatting on top of it, swearing. It pissed me right off until the year Tupac died. And that's when I began to listen to his work. And that's when Changes dropped that anthem about socio-political madness across America. And I remember reading it, and that's when I began to understand who he was, what he meant to America, the context in which he wrote. And then I moved to Dublin, and Dublin was highly racist then in 1999. I remember in my English class, we were reading Catcher in the Rye, a book that I hate till this day. And my classmates were stumbling over reading the book, so I raised my hand offering to read in the class like we're supposed to, and the whole class started laughing at me, including the English teacher, because they didn't think Africans could read. So that's how backwards it was. But when my teacher realized that I had quite a large vocabulary, she asked me if I listened to Tupac, and at this point I did. So she began to play Tupac songs and forced the whole class to listen, because I liked it, which is one of the kindest things anyway. But I fell in love with Tupac. I fell deeper in love with Tupac in Dublin. And this is a poem about him. It's called Fuck Tupac. Fuck Tupac, for dying early, for the fields of lavender and hawthorn in which I sat, overlooking Dublin city, though as dusk wrapped the sky, it could have been any creaking constellations of traffic and tower blocks. From Compton to Clondalkin, blinking staccato madness into the unspooling night. Fuck you for forcing the criminal animal, gnashing its teeth in piss-streaked alleys, colorless priests cruising in rented hatchbacks, Protestants and Catholics like the Bloods and Crips, brothers split along color lines, fueled by racist police who came to break our skin. Fuck you for ordering them to the rank and file of rhyme, for making sense of the Celtic anarchy in those urban sounds of your slim scripture, in a rich voice explaining this is how it's always been. Darkness, light, thin paths between, with you leading, you reluctant Messiah, as all true Messiahs must be, leading to a fellowship of souls, hunkered in headphones, suspended between word and hard matter, fans, disciples, self-sanctified street saints, thrown stones of strange fruit, sour as we are, scattered across the tarmacked planet, haloed in snapbacks, hooded, hidden, hollering, hard, hallelujah, head bowed, nodded in pious agreement, how we would have followed you, homie, to hell and back, how you had me whole. Thanks. How much time? One more poem? Or two more? How much? Okay, maybe two more to do it. Okay, another word. Did you say humanities? Okay, let me see. Oh yeah, I have a poem called Fuck Humanity. That's easy. This is about my niece. Her name is Ellie. She's this little bundle of everything, you know? And I remember it was her older brother's birthday, and I arrived to help my twin sister set up everything, and I was frustrated. It was hot and awful in London. Barely just put her hand into mine and melted me, and that's what this poem is about. Fuck humanity, I want to bellow, like a card-carrying champion of the nihilist society. Fuck all the ways, even our most earnest, faithful, folded over, humbled, deep down considered attempt at amending our venomous ills undoes itself. Think almond milk and California wildfires. Nitrogen fertilizer and industrial food waste. Factory emission limits in the trade in carbon offsets, free markets and exploitation, voluntary work and white savior complex, vegan avocado diet and deforestation, phones to collect our lonely spirits, and black bodies in coltan mines. Fuck every single attempt. Our best bet is to annihilate our vicious selves. I want to bellow as Ellie pushes her 3-year-old hand into the calloused cave of mine. Her fingers, frail as elderberry petals, flutter. She calls me down to the careful constellations blooming in the brown universe of her brimming eyes, and all I am folds over, humbled, deep down, reconsidering attempts at amending our venomous ills, even if it undoes me. Yes, thank you. Cool. Okay, maybe time for one more poem. So another word. Galaxy. Okay. Galaxy. Wow, this crops up in 2 poems. Pick one. 1 or 2. 1. Okay. Pardon? Close. Pretty close. It's called Fuck Nestle. So I went big. So I don't know if some of you are aware of Nestle was really shady back in the day. Particularly in West Africa, they had this huge marketing program where they told lots of women that breastfeeding was bad in order to get them hooked on formula. And when I discovered that, till this day I boycott Nestle. I just don't fuck with any of the products. But this is about my twin sister. So my twin sister has always been the harsher one of us, right? Maybe because I was always meant to be a poet. I just empathize more. And when we were kids and we used to wrestle, there's the pain line, the threshold, and I always stopped before it. But my sister just barreled through it. So she won all our wrestling bouts because I just couldn't, hurt her. But she didn't care. I remember on our very first day in primary school, in assembly, I threw a tantrum when I realized we would not be in the same class. And I looked up expecting her to be throwing the tantrum with me, but she was up and away, just going into the class. And I think ever since then I've had abandonment issues, but it all came. When my twin sister started lactating, pregnant with her first son, she called me freaking out, like, I'm making milk. Ah! And that's where this poem began. Thank you for listening. Fuck Nestle. Miriam laughing that she started lactating, become fountain of youth, her body a freestanding factory for one, calls months later, when in the closed cave of her son's mouth, a tooth poked through, glimmering white and wet as starlight, wise men followed to Bethlehem. And what is a mouth if not moist galaxy? What's milk if not primordial waters? What's a mother's chest if not Eden? And what is breastfeeding if not the passing of divine knowledge, the baby latching on, learning the body's soft frontier of flesh? The tongue's first and foremost purpose is this language. And then oftentimes their gaze will catch, and the knowing between them is old and wise as the quiet hum of hills. Just think, the newly born, deprived of this. Fuck Nestle forever. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move all this furniture very shortly. Thank you so much. That was amazing. It's good note to end on as well. We're going to now, so the poets are going to come and sit in some chairs and we're going to answer some questions. Did you know this was coming? I should have said.
Deliberately blocked it out.
It's just going to be like a nice chat. Don't worry. I'm going to move these little bits of furniture. Would you mind holding that?
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I've got my clipboard. I've written some questions, but last time, for the last event, I looked at my questions and I didn't like any of them anymore. So, the first one is a good, I feel like that's a good, opening one. So let's go with it. Just could you say something first about what you think about the relationship between poetry and activism to get us going? That's as broad as you like, really.
It's a broad question, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Oh, God. I love that. Just passing it over. I think for just speaking as myself, who else would I be speaking as? Fran, you absolute twat. No. But just from my own in terms of my own practice, poetry is one of the few art forms that poor and working class people can actually access and participate in, right? Because you don't need a ton of resources, you don't need loads of time to practice. It's portable and it's really cheap. So it's a mode of production that we can use to infiltrate literary culture, right? Which the rest of the time doesn't want us and is doing its best to sort of ignore or evict us. So poetry is a way into that space when just occupying that space is a form of activism. But I also think that poetry touches parts of us that other forms of writings don't reach because it cuts straight to the heart of things, right? In a way that, you know, like literary prose maybe struggles to, or, you know, a work of journalism, you become so mired in facts and processing things that you get kind of compassion fatigue, or you get overwhelmed and you switch off. Poetry touches you where you live. And so in that sense, it's a useful tool for activism also, I guess. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
I couldn't put it any better. I completely, I wouldn't try. I completely agree. I remember the Anthony Joseph years and years ago telling me that with poetry, he tries to liberate words from the tyranny of meaning. And I thought, look, that sounds like rubbish. That's just fancy talk. But the more I thought about it, I understood what he meant about how politics colonizes language sometimes, and in the ways in which it is duplicitous, and necessarily so for politicians to operate. It cuts off us, it cuts humans away from the mode of expression, the primary ones, the romantic ones, the lovely ones. And I think poetry reminds us about other uses of language, you know, how to beautify sometimes the ugly world to make it more malleable, more digestible, to ease the experience of living itself. So I think poetry, as a way of rejecting the rigidity of language and structure and politics, it helps us live just as a mode of communication which is separate to what is communicated, which can also be political. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. All the stuff about language is kind of, I was thinking that about both of your work. I was starting every poem with fuck, you know, that's an act of transgressive language, isn't it? Like, I mean, maybe not among poets, but, you know, I have a poem with the word fuck in it, and my auntie wrote me a letter about it, you know. So, and using like a mix of languages as well, like using Gaelic, like, you know, I think it's Gaelic, but I don't understand it. So, but you know, do you want to say any more about that, about mixing languages?
Yeah. I think, especially as a black man and as a fan of hip-hop, the ways in which hip-hop is written about, usually they focus on the harsh language and sometimes use that as a barrier to understand what was happening. In fact, that was what stopped me from appreciating hip-hop until I listened in. And but there's so much around swear words and what it is released in the body. Scientists and there have been several tests done with subjects under duress who realize they can withstand pain more if they swear, because it releases something that can't be trapped in language. But also there was an interview where James Brown was talking about Jimi Hendrix, and he said, "That motherfucker's a motherfucker." And it was a compliment, and that blew my mind because I knew exactly what he meant. And I thought, oh my God, I haven't been swearing all of this time. I really need to change that, you know. And that's why I learned into writing the actual fuck, to figure out how to use fuck in really precise, beautiful ways and powerful ways, you know. Pardon? Exactly, yes, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I love that. That motherfucker is a motherfucker. Yeah. So I think I said the same of you, you know, in your reading. That's how I'm going to describe it when people ask how it went. It was that motherfucker is a motherfucker. But when I say it, it'll look stupid because I'm so white I'm practically see-through. So it would look ridiculous. But never mind. So I think, you know, you mentioned that I use like some Irish words and some words in shelter as well. That's because I only have fragments of those languages, which for me, in addition to all the other losses that I write about, that loss of a language is a sort of prior loss. And I'm trying to find a way, I suppose, because I'm only writing in English. And I have to unmake the pain of English, which as a language has been used to sort of censor and administer and manipulate and trap and coerce and tyrannize Irish people certainly, but working class people in general. And it's a way of trying to unmake the pain of English with English and find a way of using that doesn't feel like a betrayal, and so my mouth doesn't feel like a basket of knives full of this kind of what Sean Bonney calls an enemy language, because the enemy language is the only language I have, and that's all that's left. So I find with the sort of swearing and with using kind of like different words, I'm trying to sort of unpick that structure maybe and destabilize it a little bit and make it less homogenous and less painful to carry. I guess that's That's the why of that.
I think we should see if there are any questions in the room. We've got a roving mic. Yeah? Hello.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about, this whole idea that poetry makes, this whole Auden thing about poetry makes nothing happen. And that, I was just wondering if you kind of inverted that, and if you said sort of poetry makes everything happen, then what would you kind of want poetry to make happen? What do you kind of, what do you hope that poetry would make possible or realizable, or kind of, I don't know, action, I don't want to use the word action, but what do you hope poetry would do?
Yeah. Not much more than what it's doing now, which is this. We're here in this room, sharing language, sharing pictures and imagery, building a ground level mythology, things that will settle with us and shift us slightly. I think this is the job of poetry. It isn't a machine. It isn't a governmental mandate. It's something closer and personal and deeper. And I think that's his job, really. It's to remind us the salty ways in which we're alive. Yeah.
I guess I hope that poetry would, annoy and piss off the people it was meant to piss off and annoy, that it would succor and comfort the others. And I hope that it would create a moment in language where people felt galvanized, I won't say inspired, but galvanized or provoked into maybe thinking about some of their own sort of received wisdom in a way, and whether that's checking themselves and realizing that actually language is a thing that I can inhabit and it is for me and it can be joyful, or whether that's thinking, wow, I am actually a racist, homophobic fuck and I need to kind of rethink some things. It can be either of those things, but I hope that poetry would be that place of change that extends that kind of possibility and permission for change. That's what I would hope it would do.
Any more? Are there any questions from the internet? Oh, Millie.
Oh. Oh, it is working. Hello, I'll just awkwardly bend round. So I'm a poet and an activist, and I write poetry about being a childless woman, because 1 in 5 women reach middle age without having children, and for 80% of those women it's not by choice. So I represent women who wanted to have children but couldn't. So when I perform, I often speak to people afterwards about their feelings about my poetry, which is what I want to do. It's absolutely what I'm there for. But I wanted to ask you, as more experienced people, how do you look after your own sort of mental health and keep yourself safe when you're raising such kind of, difficult and personal issues and putting them out there?
Poorly. The end. No, I mean, I don't really know how to answer that question because I've never found a happy medium. You may have noticed that I'm quite socially awkward. I don't really enjoy having conversations with people. I prefer dogs. I love people, but I do prefer that they remain at a distance. And I don't really know how to handle that, and I've never found a way of doing it. I will say that the best poetry experience I ever had, it was just like a wee reading I did with Roddy Lumsden in the Betsy Trotwood, like above a pub. And at the end of the reading, I was walking home back to the station. It's dark and it's Farringdon. I was walking back to the station, and then this massive, great big bald skinhead guy came thundering out of the pub and chasing me with this real thick kind of like Ulster Scots accent, bellowing at me, and I thought he was going to punch me. But he hugged me. And he just said to me, he's like, that really touched me. And it's a person who's like ostensibly like the other side of that divide that you spoke about so eloquently in your Dublin poem, right? But I'd said something that reached him, and that meant a lot. So I think what I'm trying to say is a really inelegant way of saying that despite all the awkwardness and how, desperately uncomfortable this is making me, for example, it's that one moment makes all of it worth it. And that's what I try to hold on to.
Thank you for sharing that. Let me see. It's a lot. It can be a lot. When I first started writing and performing, even back when I used to commit everything to memory, and then it just lived in my body, it was even harder. And I realized I couldn't do that to myself. And one of the workshops I was given a performance was by Nia Yikwe Parks, and he said something about how when you're reading a poem, all you should try and do, when you're reading it to an audience, all you should try and do is remember the emotions that give rise to the poem and live up to that within the ecosystem of the poem. So that's what I do. I never really think about the people in the room. Once I'm in the poem, I just think about what it felt to write it, and I serve that. And because of how the poems are structured or how the poems are edited, there is a closure that I reach at the end, which ties it off. So I never linger too much in it. I was touring a show called An Evening with an Immigrant just the year Brexit happened. I toured it right across the country, and that was the most heartbreaking thing because Theresa May was still in the midst of her madness. This is before she became Prime Minister, and Brexit had been, etc. And the amount of people from all walks of life, immigrants across the country, who at the end would come to share their own immigrant problem, that was heartbreaking. After that, I don't think I stepped on the stage for about 6 months. It was too much. And the frustrating thing is seeing how much that rhetoric has only deepened and broadened, and how much that has gotten to it's so sunk its roots to the core of the Conservative Party that they begin to rot from the inside out, But still, we're still here. There's still certain quasars that are impossible because they make no sense. They're asked what is the level for acceptable immigration, and none of them have been able to answer that because they're just pulling numbers out of their ass. It makes no sense. So yeah, I think, and that's how I do with it. That's how I settle my demons with what the poems raise in me, is to serve the emotions and just take time. Yeah.
There was one. It's Tom.
Thank you both for reading. It's been great. A question to both of you. So there's a Peter Gizzy phrase in an interview where he says that he finds it really hard to operate within language when language is so damaged. And I think the idea that language has been co-opted into, especially the English language has been co-opted into so many awful atrocities in the marketplace and everything, and how incredibly bruised it is. I wanted to ask how you relate to that in the practice of writing. And I know Fran's written about this in Culture Matters before in some very important essays. So maybe we could just touch on that a little bit as well.
Saul Williams is an African-American poet and musician and hip-hop artist. He talked about how he has no reverence for language whatsoever at all. He thinks of it as ice cubes, and he pours his spirit over it. It's purely to serve him, And I think that's how I think of language. It's the only language that I speak. In Nigeria, where I was born, there are 500 languages and dialects, and I don't speak any of them. So there's an ache, there's an awareness of what I know that I don't know. And language is this network in between, which is woven into the country and the blood of my ancestors, but also as a capitalist machine, as a way of rewriting culture and the very souls of people, So I think that's, knowing all of that, writing poetry itself feels like a political act, because I try to break and bend the rules of the English language as much as possible in order to make sure my spirit shines through. And I like that I can do that. There's a lot Chinua Achebe has written about language. A lot Ngugi wa Thiong'o, the Kenyan writer, has written about the politics of being an African writing in English. And a lot of that fire also liberates me from thinking about the structures and rules of the English language and to bend it to do what I want to do. Thank you. Very great question. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think anything I can say is going to be better than that. I'm trying to think, what did I say that sounded really clever when I wrote the essay? I can't remember. It was a very long time ago. I think that what I'm trying to do is to create a poem, I suppose, that shows it's working, that is sort of difficult and that stumbles and that halts at all those places where you want to retune attention to the fact that the thing that you're working with is not sort of this value neutral tool, but that it's also operating on you and that it's affecting you in a kind of variety of insidious and unconscious ways. And I suppose I want a poetics that's maybe not easily digestible in the way that things in capitalism are, something that's, you know, either eliciting that sort of like empathetic sigh, which is a kind of form of catharsis that allows everyone to feel like they've been let off the hook, and kind of glosses the fatal extent of the inequality between people, or that can just be passively art imbibed. I want something that's a bit sort of harder and a bit trickier. And I guess that's what I'm trying to do, and just to draw attention to the fact that language is not this neutral thing, that it's this loaded gun, and it's exciting to play with, but it might just kind of go off in your face. I don't know why I said that. I'm really sorry. I'm so tired.
I get to, yeah.
We got one from the internet. Hello. I'm waving to the cameras. There's not a person.
Okay, thanks. We've got a question from the online audience, which is there ever a tension between being a poet and an activist?
Not for me. I like I said, I don't seek to be, I don't go out to try to be an activist. I just write when I think the world comes to me. And then the poems are the conversation between myself and the world. When I write theater, then it's difficult, because as well as writing about how the world meets me, I have to actively entertain an audience. That is my primary relationship with them. And if I'm not entertaining, then I failed drastically. And then there's the rules of capitalism, and especially when I'm working with the theater, they have to make profit. That also underlines things. So all of that pressure is sitting on my shoulder when I'm trying to write a story about people that I care about in a scene. It has to be all of those things. So that's when it only gets tricky. But otherwise, no.
I guess I sort of have at the forefront of my mind at all times the idea that poetry is co-opted into an awful lot of things that I don't like very much. Like it's used in advertising. It's used to sort of sell, either products or ideas that are deeply morally suspect, and that institutions want to absorb you as a poet, particularly poet as an outsider, in a kind of disgusting right-wing import identitarianism in a way that's gross. But that's not poetry, that's being a poet, which is slightly different. In that way, I think that there is sometimes a tension. That what I want to do is I want to have my work out there to be able to communicate and to say things that I think are worth saying, that are important. But at the same time, in doing that, you find yourself kind of compromised and co-opted in a variety of ways. And that can be, I think, quite dangerous, particularly when you're inside of an institution and you're being used as a look at how wonderfully representational this institution is and how fantastic and brilliant. It's, the representational model of inclusivity is shite, basically. But it's also dangerous. And somebody said this in one of the workshops I was teaching, actually pointed out how dangerous that is, and it's been keeping me up at night since. Because if you're there as a sort of false flag saying, come to this institution, look, we've got working class ones and we've got queer ones and this is a safe space because look, Fran Lock's here, wow, amazing. And then people come and then it's not safe. It was safe for me because I have a position of power and privilege within that institution. It's not safe for them, and I've led them into the quicksand. And I don't ever want my work, I don't ever want to be used like that, and it actually frightens me that that's the corporate marketplace in which poetry exists now.
But you constantly resist that in what you actually write. So it's,
Yeah.
so that is at least something.
Yeah.
So all I said was that Fran does resist that in the actual poetry that she writes and publishes. So that is at least something.
Yeah, it's a small thing. I don't know if anyone wants to come back on that, if you have feels about that as well.
No. I agree. can I talk about this? No, I can't talk about it. Can I? No, I can't. Can I? Okay. So there's a big institution in London, and they asked me to write a series of poems for them. But throughout the whole Black Lives Matter movement, they were very apolitical. So when they reached out to me, I said, we have to talk about this. And I explained, oh no, if I tell you the organization, then you'll understand why I told them things, because, crap. Okay, no, just don't. Okay, yes, I can tell you this bit. It was the Museum of London. I can't tell you the thing that I did with them because that hasn't been announced yet. But I explained to them that you can't be apolitical. You're the Museum of London. London was built by immigrants. If you go back to Boudica, blah, blah, whichever way you look at it, immigration is key to the creation of London itself. And then it spiraled out across the entire country. So when people are saying things that are anti-immigrant, that are racist, that are sexist, if you represent Londoners, you cannot be apolitical about that. And I challenged them, and they had to go back and rethink everything. And I think they've actually changed that, and they're working that through their departments now and creating work that are definitely pro all of us, So yeah, I think if you challenge them, then they show their true colors. And if they don't want to fuck with you, you don't fuck with them. End of story. Yeah, but I applaud you for all of that rhetoric. Is really, really, really important. And organizations, sometimes we forget that they are made of people. Right? And if you get to them, you can change them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think, sometimes those conversations are incredibly difficult to have, but worth having, it sounds like. That's good. Are there any more questions? Oh, yeah, in the back.
Hiya, thanks. It's been really awesome. I wonder whether a lot of people are drawn towards direct action to try and destabilize and try and change what seem to be immovable powers. And I wonder whether you feel that poetry has a role in some sort of way of thinking about direct action.
I think Fran has answered that in some, definitely tonight. But yes, I think poetry does. I think of poetry, maybe the work of constructing a poem, such as having direct parallels with a capstone of a pyramid. There's all the structure beneath, all the thought. But at some point, you need a thing that focuses light and energy, which then flows through the entire body. And that is how I think of poetry. So absolutely, it calcifies, it reduces, it creates a focal point which can embody so much of everything lying underneath, everything rising up. So yeah, I think it definitely has and will continue to be used as such. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I also think that poetry does come into sort of like traditional activist spaces, poetry on the picket line, which is a wonderful thing where, sort of angry people like Chip Hamer, who's a fave, stands there and does like really ranty, angry poetry. And I find that it galvanizes people and it moves people and it touches people in a way that just shouting slogans doesn't, because people want to listen to the poem and they're listening to something that the language does. And when they're listening to something that the language does, they don't realize that they're participating in a political process and that they're being radicalized by stealth, angry stealth. But I also think about, poems like The Lament for O'Leary, this great poem in the 1700s by Eileen of Nacanhill, after her husband was shot. She does this poem like lamenting him and calling for revenge and calling for justice. And just the body of that woman in that space at that time, lamenting in Irish, at a time when speaking Irish had been outlawed, was a tremendous political act. And had huge galvanizing potential and has changed the face of protest in Ireland sort of since. That was a poem, And I think about, kind of coming up reading poems that people have been writing in prison and how, we understood what was going on. in Longkesh and places like that, because we had prison poems, and that was our way of kind of relating to and understanding that struggle. So I think the poem is political, and the poem is inseparable in some ways from politics, and we can't help but not, because all noise, all any act of making sound is political. I guess that was a very long-winded, waffly way of saying, yes, poetry is political and is a form of direct action. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. I think, unless anyone has a final question, we might wrap up there. We're finishing a little bit earlier because Stephen wasn't here, but that means there's more time. Ooh, go for it.
Could you read one more poem?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, no, both of us. You first.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
No, just because I haven't seen you, 8 years, something stupid like that. So I wanted to hear. I'm still gonna ask you guys to throw a word at me. So hold on, let me see. Yeah. So any words? Tree. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have something with trees here. Let me see. Okay. This is called Fuck History. The reason why I left Nigeria, rather my family and I, is because my father traveled to Mecca for the pilgrimage. And when he was there, he saw some things that didn't quite sit well with him and returned to Nigeria, questioning his faith. He was an upper middle class man in the north. He had married a Christian woman, and all of this didn't sit well in the community in which we lived. So when he returned and was questioning Islam, they just made life difficult for him and tried to take his life. We fled from the north to the south, to Lagos, and then some of the violence followed us, and eventually we escaped and came to Lagos. And so this is a poem that sort of looks into the Muslim and Arabic influences and the history of that in the north of Nigeria, and it's called Fuck History. For the early years I spent skimming the half-desert, half-battlefield in northern Nigeria, I wonder if the ground misses me. If in the fallow, shadowy holes I'd hide, giggling at my searching sisters, my toe prints are still held by the dust. What if my ancestors were the dust? Which Fulani conquest spilled their blood? In which setting did they find romance? What if it is their meeting in me that spurs grains of sand to taste like sparks of clashing swords, like seeds of stars or moon nucleus? Sometimes I dream in Hausa and have no idea what is being said. Sometimes Arabic calligraphy looks to me like flowers on fire. What if the Quran is a pressed forest of burning trees? Is the call to prayer a line of low flames? What is it to miss a way of being I was too young to be? The largest possible quantity of anything is a lifetime. When my father returned from Hajj, doubting Islam, I was asleep. When the Imam's thug aimed an AK at our car, I still believed until I stared down the barrel of the gun and saw no light at the tunnel's end. So began a lifetime of questions, each page a desert, each thin blue line a cold horizon. All the waiting words are shards of parched stars, the looming stanzas like rising moons, an infinite infidel hiding in me. Thanks.
I'm not going to ask you to pick a word because there are literally all the words in this book. It's way too big. There's too much book, and it was a bad idea, but I did it anyway. I'm just going to read this one. I'm going to read this one because I wrote this with a young person who is known in the purpose of the text just as Sab Loyal. That's not her real name. That's a pseudonym that she uses because she doesn't want her parents to know that she does poetry. So I'm going to read this that I wrote with her, and I hope that she'll be watching. So, and it's called Some Kids Speak. Yes, it's about that. Please, miss, us know the hand that feeds is a fist. White is a grave grub, this mealy morn the page in the pale rot of restraint. You say us flicky eyes to slant. Us want to be told, bossed, persistently shaken, the surly black Shawshanked out of us. You said so, miss, kept thumbing your cast in us face. Medals are failed lions, frustrated crowns. Please, miss, Yalla Yorland's yearling pup, small words politely porpid into text. Who are us? Parade of fictive kin, stout fact white tribe of broken noses, ugly gobs chew on the no one of us names. Please, miss, you are V frightened on the internet. Us is V frightened on a fondler's nocturne freakishly. Us is exploits. Us pain said through the side of your mouth for a towny slagging. Prole hurt is a tattooed dunce. Us grunt and scrat. Us bastard musk. Us fat and fetching gaudy skunks. Please, miss, us not defective stock. Us is the fluky glitch that glisters every spinning thing. Us exhaust. You Aggie. Feared. Us dismembered can remake the world one shiner, one lie, one shiny one liner at a time. The phobic whiff of time's up on the wind. Please, poor fossil, as if. Us is cancelled. Day in, day out. A sagging thunder over us. May you lauded operator, preening laurels. She had a lot of feelings.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. There are books outside. I'm sure if you ask nicely, Fran and Inua will sign them. We are back at 8 for a great time. We've got an event about land rights and access to the outdoors in all possible senses of that phrase, and I think that's going to be really cool. Another round of applause for our poets, and see you later.